Welcome back to GMA3. On Wednesday, a bipartisan group of senators introduced the Charitable Act, new legislation aimed at encouraging more Americans to give back.
And right now, taxes are on everyone's minds. And our next guest believes charitable tax breaks only benefit the rich, and he's working to change that. Let's bring in one of the lawmakers leading the charge, Oklahoma Senator James Lankford. Senator, thank you so much for joining us here on GMA3. You know, we found out that more than 25,000 charities and nonprofits, they're already supporting this legislation. What impact would it have on the average American and even the average nonprofit?
It would have a tremendous amount of impact because it encourages Americans to do what they already love to do. Americans are a giving people. We see a problem, we give, we just engage. That's who we are on it. But right now, the write-off for the tax write-off is only for the wealthiest, basically those that itemize their taxes. For most Americans that don't itemize, they get no tax benefit from it. The reason we need to do a tax benefit for it is, quite frankly, it encourages good in that sense. That's what a lot of our tax code should be. Our safety net's not just government, it's our families are our first safety net. Second safety net or houses of worship, churches, nonprofits all over the country, and then third is government. If we can encourage more people to be able to be engaged with their families and be engaged in local nonprofits, it helps the homeless and the hungry and the hurting much better than just the federal government sending a check. Nonprofits live life on life with people and really help out, so that's what we want to be able to encourage more of.
And Senator, you just said this bill aims to encourage people to do good. Why is this so important, especially right now, though, when inflation is really hurting a lot of people?
So we tested this out actually during the time of COVID, when nonprofits were extremely important to taking care of the first response to COVID and people were locked down. We gave a $300 tax credit the first year, then a $600 tax credit for a family for the second year during COVID time, and we saw a big bump of families actually giving of all income brackets. Again, people love to be able to give, but they also know that if they give, then they get to write off on their taxes. It gives just that little bit of extra incentive, and quite frankly, it gets help faster to people who need it really quickly at that moment. So we've tested this out. We know it's effective on this. We want to make this a permanent policy long term so that families can write off up to a third of the standard deduction, which for a family would be about $9,000. That if you gave that much into any nonprofit of your choice, pick any one of them, whether it's a museum or a library or a homeless shelter or a feeding station or a church or synagogue, pick any nonprofit you want to be able to pick. If you gave to that, you'd have the opportunity to be able to write off your taxes, even if you don't itemize.
I've got to tell you, Senator, the way I grew up, it would have been impossible for my family to donate money. So what are some other things that you can do about the tax code to help Americans who are just really hurting right now?
Yeah, there's a lot that's going on. I would tell you a lot of families, especially families in poverty, they do give. They give what they can and they engage. If they give even a $5, and I've worked at, for instance, the Salvation Army at their kettle time in December, and I watch families come into a store, they give $1 or they give change or whatever they can. We love to be able to do that. But there are things that we've already done in the tax code. For instance, the child tax credit, we changed that in 2017 and dramatically increased that. There's been things that have been done to be able to help Americans in very difficult moments. We want to be able to help Americans also help Americans. We're at our best when we're helping each other and we're personally engaged in that. When it's government that does the help, sometimes it feels disconnected and Americans don't really feel a sense of ownership. That's somebody else doing it. But as an American, when we do it for someone else, we not only get the blessing of actually giving, but we get the blessing of being involved in helping someone turn their life around.
I think to many Americans right now, it feels like politics is really polarized. This bill, though, is a moment of bipartisanship. Are there other areas you see opportunities to work across the aisle on? What would those be?
100% there are other areas to be able to work across the aisle. There's a lot of common ground that's here. We just seem to bicker about the things that are not common to us. If we can focus on the areas where we agree, and it's quite a bit, we could actually get a lot done. It's a context thing. This Monday, I had the opportunity to be able to read George Washington's farewell address. It's happened in the Senate every year since 1893. George Washington, when he was leaving office, challenged Americans to not break into parties, to not become factions, knowing it would tear the nation apart. We continue to see that statement that he made in the 1700s still be true today, that if we can work to be able to find common ground areas, we can find it. Even in things as diverse as permitting and energy policy. There's a lot of different opinions about energy policy, but we can't get lithium out of the ground or hydrogen or move CO2 or do natural gas or oil because of a permitting issue to try to be able to move that. We have a bipartisan group that's been talking for quite a while about how do we solve the energy issue and develop our energy future and be able to get that done in a nonpartisan way.
All right. I think a lot of people would like to see the two sides come together on more issues. Oklahoma Senator James Lankford, thank you so much for joining us today.